everyone. We're so happy to have you here with us on the Stronger Marriage webinar produced by the Utah Marriage Commission, hosted by Utah State University. I'm Alexis Alcott, the UMC Program Coordinator, and we're excited to have you join us today. In today's webinar, we're so excited to be joined by Debi Gilmore. Debi Gilmore is the co-owner of the EFT Counseling and Educational Center, a mental health clinic with 3 locations across the state of Utah, specializing in marriage and family therapy. She's a therapist, clinical trainer, author, and public speaker. Dr. Gilmore is a frequent presenter and keynote speaker at professional conferences and special events for the general public. She achieved her doctorate in family and marriage therapy and her doctoral dissertation with a relationship education program, which is now being taught and used by therapists and religious leaders across the world. She and her husband, Kirk, live in Washington, Utah. They've been married almost 45 years, and together they have 3 children and 9 grandchildren, and their first great-grandchildren born this last September.
Right.
This webinar today will introduce everyone to the step-by-step process, learning the nuances of active listening, clarity and sharing, and emotion processing. The system focuses on the heart and soul of an emotional connection. While using the system, couples learn to find emotional safety and clarity in the communication process. Couples learn how to navigate through conflict in a collaborative manner. Couples who learn to explore the many barriers that can interfere with a close and connected relationship within the marital partnership. And couples will learn about the importance of uncovering and integrating shared goals and visions of their future together through a new and innovative communication process. If you have any questions, please ask them by entering your question to the Q&A function that's found at the bottom of your screens. The chat will be turned off during the entirety of the presentation, so this is really the best place to ask any questions that you have for Debi. We will have a 15-minute Q&A at the end of her presentation, so write down your questions and save them for the end. If you've joined us today for the CEU credit, make sure to stay on until the end of the presentation. The survey needed for your credit will automatically load onto the screen, and then you'll receive an email from the Utah Marriage Commission with your certificate. You may also email the Utah Marriage Commission if for some reason it doesn't load onto your screen at marriagecommission@usu.edu. Then we'll give you the survey that's needed for your certificate, and once you complete that survey, we'll send you back an email with your CEU credit certification. We'll now turn the time over to Debi for her presentation.
Thank you so much, Alexis. It's always nice to be with you and to be able to talk about something I have a passion for. This one's easy. And it's exciting to me because so many couples, like you said, have embraced this across the world. We didn't have to work at it. Word spread. Couples wanted it. They found they were thriving with these principles. And so I get to teach it tonight. And so thank you so much. The way I'd like to begin is first to acknowledge my business partner, Dr. Rebecca Jorgensen. She is the co-founder of this program with me. It's a result of my doctoral dissertation. And what I did was I examined what's missing, what's out there for premarital couples, and what's missing in those programs. I found some important things that I wanted incorporated that I knew worked through research. And so together we created this program and our secret sauce, the connection system MAT, that I'm going to introduce you to a little bit later. First, we need to talk about some basic principles about communication. Communication can be actually that cliche topic if, most couples break up because they couldn't communicate. Well, actually, I'm going to say you cannot not communicate. It's unhealthy communication that brings on the problems and the pain. So unhealthy communication, for me, there's 3 main concerns. First, when you get in that chronic conflict that happens over and over and over again, it actually reinforces the negative cycle or negative patterns that you get stuck in. Painful patterns. And some will say, wait, I knew that was going to happen. Why do I keep doing it that way? Why do I keep saying it that way? Well, it means we need to slow down and intentionally change it up. But first, you have to know the principles, what to do differently. The second thing is that unhealthy communication damages security. And over time, that emotional safety disappears and couples become parallel in their lives. They don't connect. They avoid the hard conversations because it always goes bad. And so they have a lot of unresolved issues. Every couple has hard things they have to face. And so those are not addressed and they just pile on and pile on. So lack of security. And then the third thing that we see all the time, couples may not divorce legally, but we see a lot of emotional divorce. Those couples that live like roommates and just avoid interacting much with each other. They stay on a surface level. To me, that's tragic and it's not necessary. So tonight, I'm going to share with you some principles that through 4 solid research studies that have been successful and 2 more that are being launched, these principles work. And we also have found through longitudinal studies that these principles couples remember and they can use them. They actually do use them. If couples are in therapy, then they can use these principles between their therapy sessions. Couples that have purchased this program across the world and just use it in their home and use it with their children, use it in relationships. So that's just an introduction to this secret sauce of our connection system. Now, we teach these principles in workshops, the Building a Lasting Connection workshop, that are also available across the world. I'll tell you at the end of my presentation how you can access those workshops. But there's an exercise that we do in the workshop to introduce communication to the couples. And this particular exercise has 3 steps. It gets progressively harder. So the first one, and if you're with your sweetheart right now, you might try this. Turn to your partner and try to communicate hello 3 different ways. It's so much fun to work with couples who have their secret codes. They can do this with their own developed language. Premarital couples, I want you to think about how you might communicate to your partner using words, using text, using your body. Now, the second step is a little more complicated. Try to communicate an emotion to your partner without using verbal cues. No words. How would you communicate that you're sad? How would you communicate that you're jealous or discouraged, confused, afraid? Can you do that without words? Now, the third one is the most difficult, but actually, I think it's the most fun. If you're with your sweetheart, how would you communicate, I love you, without using verbal cues? I think it would be fun to develop this little code between you so that if you're in a crowd of people, you could say to your sweetheart, I love you, and no one would know. Now, there's 2 main types of communication. We like to teach couples this as well. And I'm going to have a little fun with you in just a minute. But first, what are those 2 types? Well, we talked about one, verbal communication. The other is nonverbal. I believe that humans are not aware enough of their body language. And we have a lot of power of influence over others with our bodies, with our facial expressions, tone of voice. I mean, recently I had a couple sitting on my couch in a couple session, and suddenly the partner got very quiet. And I said, what just happened? I didn't notice. Did someone say something? And this partner said, no, he breathed. And that was a signal that he wasn't okay. So those subtle little movements or breaths that we take, tone of our voice, have power. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to experiment just a little bit. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about mirror neurons. So let me just share my screen, and hopefully you can see me off to the side. I don't want to lose you. So these mirror neurons are a part of our brain that actually reside in the emotion center of our brain. They're miraculous. For example, on a hot summer day, if you see someone drinking a glass of ice cold water, your brain signals to you that you are actually drinking that water. Or another example is, let's just imagine someone's across the room and you see them bite into a crisp, juicy apple. Your taste buds will swell, your saliva will increase, and your brain will really imagine that you're eating that apple. So what I'm going to do with you now is to experiment with your mirror neurons. What I want you to do is just notice your body right now. Notice how you're feeling and just relax, take a deep breath. And when you see each of these slides, I want you to call out the emotion that you're feeling. I can't hear you. In these workshops, we have the couples just freely call out the emotion. I'll do that for you because universally these slides generate basically the same emotion. Just notice how quickly you feel what is showing on the screen. You ready? This one's pretty compelling. Anger. Some people say that they feel this urgency to step back, or they'll feel tightness in their chest or their gut. They feel a sick feeling in their gut. Obviously, this is rage, anger. He's mad. And we feel it. Why? Because of our mirror neurons. Now, the next one. Fear. Instantly, those eyes bring you in and you are consumed by this sense of terror. How about this one? This is an interesting experience because obviously we're seeing sadness. We're experiencing sadness. But many people in our workshops tell us that they feel the tears on their cheeks. Oh, it just pulls me in, and I have this immediate empathy and compassion for this child. And that's the other thing about mirror neurons. They give us the capacity to feel with someone else. Think about your partner. If you see them with tears, and sometimes couples, when one partner is feeling the emotion of sadness and the other is a little overwhelmed by it because they don't know what to do about it. And also it's because their mirror neurons are signaling sadness. Now, how about this one? Pure joy. This little baby has not a care in the world. And I could hover over this one for a while, but we don't have time. Now, this one, I want you to imagine that you are a child off in the room with this couple. Even though they're not looking at you, there's energy in the room, and your mirror neurons read the emotion and the energy, and it's disturbing. And we want couples to understand the power of this moment of conflict. And that's why we want to help you understand how to communicate more effectively. This image has two experiences in one. So I'm going to invite you to direct your gaze to the right side of your screen. That little boy is kissing the cheek of the other. And if you just look at him, you have a sense of compassion. It's a tender moment. It's an empathic moment. Now, if I have you direct your gaze to the little boy in the center, immediately your mirror neurons in your brain signal sadness, maybe a little ache. So to me, this is fascinating and a great introduction to our connection system that teaches couples to be very aware of your body, your tone, and how you're conveying your message, because you might not at all be upset, but the vigor of your face or the tone of your voice might communicate something other than that. So we want to be really aware. Okay. Now, one important thing about our program is that it is based on two very important scientific theories. The first is the theory of attachment. Attachment science tells us that to build a lasting relationship, before we can ever really communicate effectively, we have to feel secure. We have to be able to bond. And in adulthood, as couples, we have to do it all over again. So in our program, we like couples to understand that with a foundation of attachment, communication skills are already empowered. So what is an attachment? Well, it's friendship, it's trust, it's emotional safety. It's just this knowing that our person is there for us. And so if we're going to have a hard conversation, we will be able to do so safely. Well, you might say, but we're securely attached. We just struggle with this conflict. Okay, well, let's move to the next level. Notice where we have what we call embracing differences. In our program, we like to suggest that it's not fighting that you're doing. It's you identifying differences. And instead of being offended or threatened by those differences, we can embrace them, knowing that our partner will accept us for the way we view things slightly differently. So I'm going to teach you tonight those principles of how to do that. Now, before I get there, I've done a lot of teasers and the, intros, but we're almost there. And so first I want to help you understand what it looks like when we're in an ideal world. We all wish that our relationships could be ideal. Well, let me show you the ideal, and then I'll show you what happens when it's less than ideal. This is the attachment cycle. And those 4 basic attachment needs, we need to feel accepted. Be thinking about your most recent conversation with your sweetheart that didn't go well. And ask yourself, did I feel accepted? Do I feel a sense of belonging when we're talking about hard things? Can I reach to my partner for comfort? And can I feel safe in doing so? Well, in an ideal world, what we will do on that day when we feel a little insecure is we will reach to our partner. And ideally, our partner will respond and say, oh, I'm so glad you told me you're feeling insecure today. Come here, let me hold you. And then by virtue of that connection, our self-worth grows instantly. We're elevated into this sense of belonging. We feel accepted. We feel a level of comfort, and we know that it's safe to do so. Now, the problem is we don't live in an ideal world. The world we live in throws us curveballs all the time. We might have some hard days, or we might be in those negative patterns that we just can't seem to break. So here's how it looks. We might have a little discomfort. We might feel insecure. But whether it's because we have a negative view of ourselves, or we tell ourselves that our partner won't matter if we reach, it hasn't worked before, they'll be mad at me, he'll think I'm selfish if I'm thinking about my partner. So instead of reaching, we react. And that sends us into how we cope with those moments of distress. So you might fight. You might fight for the relationship. Look, we got to figure this out. Or you might want to just fly away. You might want to go to your room, close the door, and just deal with it on your own. Escape the discomfort. Or you might freeze in place, shut down, feel that paralysis of, I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm just numb. The challenge here is, as much as we need those universal ABCs of attachment, we're not able to achieve them because we're coping in ways that bring us away from the relationship rather than toward each other. So here's the problem. An alarm sounds. Uh-oh, I can't achieve those things that I so desperately need. So we bounce off those needs and off into chronic anxiety, depression, addictions, which is just a way to cope with disconnection, and ultimate disconnection and isolation. So this cycle actually explains a lot of things. It explains distress in relationships. It actually explains addictions, including working harder. Oh, I'm just going to go get busier. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to eat. I'm going to use drugs. I'm going to drink. All those things to excess. And all those things are only ways that numb out the pain that we experience from disconnection. So this is our secret sauce. I've been talking about this tonight, but now let me describe to you what you're seeing on this screen. This is our connection system. It has two sides. Tonight, I'm just going to introduce you to side one because we don't have a lot of time. But it's 8 feet by 4 feet. And so you can see a couple actually in a workshop or in their home. In this case, this is a couple that uses it in their home, standing on our connection system. And I'm going to introduce you to the sections. This is not Twister. A lot of people say, oh, it reminds me of the Twister game, but it's not. So let me break it down for you. We have a speaker section. This is where one partner will be doing all the processing of sharing how they feel, think, just all the meaning they make. And it gives you the guides of how to talk about that hard thing. Now, the last conversation you had that did not go well, you likely didn't have this circle that made sense of it all. So there's the speaker side. And then we have a listening side. And let me just spend a couple minutes on this. The listener has the most difficult job. And we acknowledge that in our workshops. We teach that to the couples that learn this system so that both partners understand the listener is making a great sacrifice, but notice they have a role to play. And if you've ever been in a communication class, if you had one in college, you likely didn't learn how to listen the way we teach you to listen. This is listening for closeness, listening to become closer. And so we acknowledge how hard it is and just ask the listener to be patient because they will have their chance to be on the speaking side. Now I'm going to show you my favorite part. This is what we call the pause place. The pause place is that safety zone where the couple starts on the pause place. They end here after the one cycle of doing this process, but also it's a place that they always know they can go if one or both get a little elevated in emotion, struggle just a little bit. That's another thing that you don't have when you're doing these hard conversations is, whoa, it's picking up speed. And that's the main thing that we see in couples is that when you go into distress, it picks up speed, you go into distress, you're not hearing each other, not at all, actually. You don't feel heard, and you're experiencing even more injuries because it's going so poorly. So I want to show you just a few more images of couples. This couple's preparing to start on this process. And this couple is actually standing on the pause place. So what I want to do is just orient you to what exactly is the pause place? How do you use it? Well, in this hard conversation, the couple is going to decide on a topic. And then before they ever get started, they're going to stand on the word slow. You can see their feet are on this word slow. Now, this is important. It's a reminder that the conversation that they're having, that they're going to have, they have to keep it slow. And let me pause here for just a minute as I'm talking about this process. We have couples that are in distress, that are able to use this system and not get overwhelmed. Why? Because they keep it slow. That's key. Now, the next step, they move in and stand on breathe. A reminder, not only are you going to keep it slow, but you're going to be breathing the whole time to keep your heart rate and your blood pressure in check. And then also notice we've developed it so that in this process, the couple gets closer and closer, so that now the final step, they're given the opportunity to touch, to hold each other. Now, if you know anything about the science of touch, you know that with lingering touch, you get that release of oxytocin that is that chemical, the hormone that calms your body. So we have the couples take at least a minute or two silently moving in sync with each other to attune to each other and co-regulate their emotions. This is a great way to prepare for that hard conversation. Now, let me spend a few minutes talking about how to listen authentically. If all you take from this is just the skill of listening to validate your partner, and if you can practice this, you can apply this in any relationship out there, not just marriage, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your business partners. If you will listen this way, you will develop leadership skills that you won't believe, and the power that comes in being able to listen. However, I'm going to remind you, it requires discipline and patience. So, first one, we teach this with an acronym, ARE. A stands for accessible. So, one of the key things that we need to do is put our phone down, put away the TV, turn it off, get away from our computer, and notice where it is on the mat. The listener is standing facing the speaker, sending the message, I'm here for you. And couples like these prompts, because often they'll say, well, I don't know what to do listening. I'm just standing here taking in all these things that somewhat it's hard to hear. But actually, they're given ideas of how to respond. Honey, I'm here for you. Tell me what you would like to talk about. Or what I hear you say is, and share. So A in ARE is accessible. I am accessible to you. The R in ARE is I am responsive to you. In other words, not only is my phone set aside, not only am I getting eye contact with you, my body is facing you, but I actually want to know more about what you're sharing. And if you think about those hard conversations you've had, you don't get to this point, not normally, unless you're really an expert at listening. But listening authentically is a way to get away from listening manipulatively. You don't want to manipulate the conversation. You are listening with grace. You're listening with kindness and patience. So here's where the listener is prompted to ask more questions. So what you want to talk about is blank. Okay, so could you tell me more about that? And so this prompts you to ask more questions. The third one, the E in ARE, is not only are you accessible to your partner, not only are you responding to say, I'm still here, you're staying engaged by reassuring your partner and saying, you're my person. I'm so glad you're sharing. As hard as this is to hear right now, I really am glad you're telling me, because you don't tell me this stuff. I had no idea that you felt this way. I'm glad you're sharing. So it's powerful. Now, let's go to the speaker side. And I'm going to quickly move through these. Just as I said, this is an overview of these principles. Hopefully you're gathering as much as you can so that you understand the power of this process. Let me give you a scenario. Just several years ago, I had a premarital couple in my office. They were coming for premarital education and counseling. They were given these sessions as a wedding gift. And it was so fun for me to be able to meet with them, this beautiful bride, and they were so young and really needed these skills about how to communicate. Because when they came to choose the topic of what they wanted to talk about, the bride actually said, I have something that I haven't been able to talk about yet. And so I said, okay, bring it on. She said, I've had this dream as I prepare for our reception. As a little girl, I drew what it would look like. I wrote out the menu. I chose the most perfect colors and I've dreamed about it. And now my soon-to-be mother-in-law comes with me and changes all my decisions. She's making all the decisions. And this bride was worried that she would offend her mother-in-law. So anytime she would try to say something, she felt selfish. And so she just kept quiet. And this ache in her heart, she said, can we talk about this? So that was what the couple chose to talk about. So here's key. When you introduce the topic, she's going to stand on this circle at the center of the mat. And she's going to say, what I'd like to talk about is your mom's been making all these decisions about the reception, and I'm feeling left out. Well, there's a little more to it, but what we encourage the couples to do is just say one sentence so that the listener now says, so what you want to talk about is how it's been happening with my mom in choosing the details for the reception, and she's been making all the decisions. Did I get that right? That's key, because now the speaker knows that it's clear what she wants to talk about, and he's hearing this for the first time, going, wow, I had no idea, but this is what you want to talk about. Now she is prompted to move following arrows on this circle of the speaker's side. So now she's going to stand on what I do. The gift in this is now the listener is going to hear her say, I realize that I get short with you. I haven't told you that this has been hurting me. And instead, I've just been short with you. Or I've been going to my room and closing the door. I haven't been talking to you. So the listener is hearing, oh, you see that? This is, yeah, I've been seeing that. So what you do is you push me away. You shut me out. You go to your room and you close the door. And so that softens the listening process a little bit, because now the listener or the speaker actually might not even realize what she's been doing. And when she stands on this, she's been invited to consider, what is it that I do to cope in these moments when I can't talk about it? So then she's prompted to move to thoughts right next to what I do. This is important. This is the internal dialogue that she never gets to. This is the place where she can say, I haven't been telling you what I've been thinking, but I tell myself that you'll be mad at me if I bring this up. I tell myself that you'll just see me as a nag. Or I tell myself that my soon-to-be mother-in-law will think that I'm a nag and she'll think negatively of me. Or if I do talk to you about it, it won't make a difference. You'll choose your mom anyway. Which again, here's this premarital couple talking about the bonding, talking about her desire for him to choose her and to cleave unto her, if you want to use a traditional term, to be able to leave, not abandon his family, but to choose her as a priority and say, oh, mom, this is her dream. Let's let her choose this. And so she was afraid to talk about it. Her longing we'll get to in a minute. All she's going to talk about here is the meaning that she makes, the thoughts that she tells herself. And he had no idea. So here's an example of what he might respond with. So you tell yourself that I would be angry if you told me, or you think that I would see you as a nag. Did I get that right? Think about the power of hearing your own words back. If you are the speaker and you're keeping this slow and you're able to hear your partner say, so you thought that I would be angry at you, changes everything about the conversation. Now let's just imagine that the listener is getting a little agitated here. He's struggling with, her thinking that he would be angry. So she notices that he's getting a little escalated. He has two choices. He can move over to the pause place, stand on slow. She would follow. Or she could say, could we move to the pause place? We need a break. Notice it's not, honey, you're getting a little agitated. I think we need to go to the pause place. Instead, it's this internal, we need that safe zone. Let's go. It's a we moment. It's us doing this together. So it teaches the couple to co-regulate their emotions, to notice the body language, and to be compassionate with the other instead of, hey, you need to settle down here. Let's go to the pause place. So we love the pause place. It was the last thing that Dr. Becca Jorgensen and I added to this connection system. And we found that it was actually brilliant and it was necessary. We needed some sort of check place where they could just breathe again, and then they move back onto their positions. So now she's talked about the thoughts. Here is where you don't normally get to go in these conversations. Talking about the feelings that come up when this gets hard. Imagine this bride-to-be, where she's feeling so sad and maybe moments of frustration. She's able to say, I get frustrated. I feel so sad. I feel lonely. I imagine that I tell myself, if you think that I am a nag, that your family won't like me and I will be all alone. I'll never be accepted into your family. I will feel abandoned. So it's not, I feel like you're mad at me. It's, I feel sad. The couple is actually learning emotion words. And we do teach those with other exercises in the workshop. Now, the next place that notice she's moving from what I do, thoughts, feelings. Now she's being given the opportunity to talk about her catastrophic fear. If you think about that time when you got into that conflict moment and both of you were just butting heads and not able to get into this conversation to a point where it's successful, you don't really think about what your catastrophic fear is. But now imagine if this bride-to-be is able to say, I'm afraid if you don't choose me and I can't choose you, if we aren't choosing each other first, we'll drift apart. Now, if she's able to share that, maybe she didn't even realize that was her fear. Do you see how this program actually helps you become more self-aware? But the listener, her partner, is hearing something brand new. You're afraid that I won't love you? Is that what you said? Can you tell me more about that? So he would be standing on responsive and saying, tell me more about your fear. She might say, I'm afraid that you might decide to replace me with someone else. So do you see how powerful that is, that moment where they're in the circle of fear? And notice that there's no yes, but circle or no fix circle. There's only a circle that tells them, talk about your fear regarding this topic. It just gives the couple the opportunity to connect on a deeper level, to learn more about each other, so that next time they know, oh, he knows that she's afraid, and he can reassure her and say, honey, I'm here for you. So now let's move to the next part of this process. This is where most conversations never go, where you're able to say, because it's such a slow pace, what do I really need in this regarding this topic? So this bride-to-be is able to say something like, I would love to know that you have my back, that you'll defend me, that you'll protect me in these moments, that I can go to you and say, you're my person, please help me. Now, in other scenarios, let's just say the topic is a budget. Well, what if she was able, or he was able to say, I need to know how much money is in our budget so that I'm not afraid of spending too much. Couples, in preparing for this new relationship, if you're premarital, if you've been in a relationship for decades, could you say that to your partner and have your partner respond with, yeah, let's get it on the calendar? Or you never go on dates. I would like us to sit down with our calendars and choose times we will be together, write it down to make it happen. So what I need and what I long for is really going deeper into this communication process. And the listener is able to say, so you want to hear kinder words. So you want to hear me say, I love you more. So that's absolutely important to be able to convey that without shame or embarrassment. Now, here's where the action item. This is the other one was the action item, actually. This one, the way that we have designed this is now the speaker is able to talk about their hopes, their dreams, but notice they are directed to start with, sweetheart, do you know what I hope for you? If you and I work on a budget together, you will feel more confidence in our financial future. For me, I would like to feel secure in my position in your family. That's what that bride to be wanted for herself. For her partner, she might have said, for you, I want you to know that choosing me will actually help us be closer and happier together, and that you don't need to leave your mother. You just want to choose, we want to choose each other ultimately as the top priority. Notice then you move to what the speaker longs for and hopes for us as a couple. You might be saying us as a family with children, us as an extended family. I feel like spending more time together will help us feel closer. Regular dates or getaways will help us build memories, will help us stay close to each other. So this is our connection system. This is that 8-foot by 4-foot mat. The other side, side 2, helps couples process an injury, what we call the hurt that blocks their connection. And so it really does help heal that injury in attachment. We call it attachment injuries, or a regrettable moment, an unfortunate moment that causes such impact on the relationship that they're blocked. And so side 2 looks the same, but has different prompts, still has the speaker side and the listening side. And so this program, we have found couples report to us that they are able to remember these processes. I had one, this is the most fun story. They were driving in the car one day and they got into an interesting conversation. And the wife said, while they were driving, she said, honey, just so you know, I'm on slow on the pause place. They didn't have the mat in front of them, but they knew the system. And she said, let's slow down first, take a breath, and then let's decide who's going to be the speaker and who's going to be the listener. It's such a natural process. They're able to go through this communication, finding more closeness. And then once the speaker and the listener has completed the first round, they go back to the pause place and go on slow, breathe, and touch. And then they switch places. Now the listener, thank goodness, has their chance to speak about this topic from their perspective. And in our workshop, we have worksheets and ways to prepare the couple so that they already have an understanding of what they want to say and the topic that they've chosen together. I recommend that couples choose a very light topic just to learn the process, to be able to do this without too much distress. So that first, experientially, you want to learn how to do this so that then when you choose a more difficult topic, you're able to do it because your body is like muscle memory. It's remarkable how this process works, and it's contained on that 8-foot by 4-foot area. So Alexis, if you're still there, I would love to have you come back in, and I do have some information about how to find us. I don't know if you wanted me to share that. And you're on mute, so let's bring you back in
Yes,
there.
please do. Love to
Okay.
hear that.
Rebecca Jorgensen and I are partners in both of these programs, Building Lasting Connection, one step at a time. We named it that because it's steps, and it's just a little creative way to remind you what we're about. We have our website, buildingalastingconnection.com, that if you go there, you can find listed some workshops. They actually do them virtually, or they do them locally. And right now, we have a few listed, and if you keep checking, that you can find the ones that are listed in the future. And then also our ECEC website, EFT Counseling and Education Center, is where we teach this program. Our therapists use this with their couples. And so you can find us on that website, eftcounseling.org. And then also my newsletter. I would love to have you go to my website, drdebigilmore.com. It's spelled DEBI. And I have a monthly newsletter that gives you relationship and just well-being ideas. So thank you for letting me share those, Alexis.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for sharing them as well. I'm sure that people want to learn more about this and continue their education around this. So thank you. We're going to go ahead and get right into that Q&A portion of our webinar. Just a reminder, how you can reach that Q&A section is go to the bottom of your screen. It will say Q&A, and you can press into that and then type in any questions that you might have for Debi. Our first question is already in, which is, what is the second step after patience I need to use when learning to listen for closeness?
Oh, that's such a hard question. Patience is the hardest. I'm still learning patience, but if you need to have patience and discipline. You need to have self-discipline, but always a reminder that what you are doing is the hardest part of communication. If you think about it, you're hearing something that might be disturbing or new, and you might be surprised by it. But what we found is if the listener is able to say, that's hard to hear, but what you're telling me is blank, whatever that is, when you reflect it back, defenses are down. And also remember, you will have a chance to be able to go on to the other side and to be able to say, this is how I see it. So we actually have couples, if they want to, they can write down their thought that they want to share so they don't forget. They have a worksheet that they can use. So I'm just going to say it is a skill that has to be cultivated. But what we found is those 3 prompts that are on the listening side actually reduce the difficulty of the listening because they're active in it. They're able to ask questions. So hopefully that answered their question enough. I could spend an hour talking about listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. I loved that. Our next question is, how long do you need to touch to release oxytocin? I've never heard that before, they say.
Oh, this is fascinating. Thank you. How much time do we have, Alexis? Okay. Oxytocin is a hormone that is released in our bodies when we are lingering touch. It has to be within 10 to 12 seconds. If you just briefly touch someone, you're not going to get that release. But lingering touch, Virginia Satir is the one that said we need 12 hugs a day for survival, just to maintenance. And so that's because if you think about the longest hug you've ever had, how many seconds do you think it was? Well, it's probably 3 seconds. Like, that's a long time. So I prescribe to couples 15-second hugs because you'll get the dose of oxytocin. And the reason that's important is because it's a calming hormone. It counters the stress hormone cortisol. And so there's been lots of experiments done on humans and the release of oxytocin. And what they've now found is they're creating synthetic oxytocin and using it in hospital settings for pain management. They're doing experimental studies on women in labor and using synthetic, like inhaled oxytocin, and it calms, it reduces the pain. That's fascinating. So why wouldn't we start this hard conversation with a release of oxytocin? So 12 seconds about, and longer is better.
Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, who needs an epidural anymore, right?
Yeah. No. I would
I'll also need an epidural, but our next question is, how would this method look when a couple is addressing an issue that might not be able to be resolved in one conversation? Would it just be repetitions of the cycle over time? Sometimes the case is that we're both tired of talking about it, but we know it isn't resolved. So we keep trying to hash it out, but that seems to be more detrimental than hopeful.
Yeah, and so it's complicated. What I'm hearing them say is that this is a really tense issue. You want to find one aspect of the issue. And it would be helpful if I had an example from them, but I can think of many where you don't notice. In my example, I had her choose one incident. It was a broad feeling of, I'm feeling like I'm never going to be able to be a part of this family. If it's a specific, like we never go on vacation, or, you get mad at me when I spend money. Well, you want to choose what is the actual issue that causes you an ache in your heart. I feel like I'm on the outside when it comes to our budget. So choose that one aspect, something that relates to you and how it impacts you in the relationship, so that your partner can hear it that way. And that way it's less threatening. So I wish that I had a two-way conversation with the questioner, because there's probably something maybe a little more painful that they haven't been able to talk about. Just simplify it. Isolate it to what is the main thing that you're wanting to convey. Resolve that, and then find another aspect of this difficult thing. Likely they're complicating it too much and making it too messy to begin with.
I love that. Thank you so much. Our next question is, how should I respond if I don't understand why my partner is fearful or feeling a certain type of way? I
Okay.
want to understand them, but sometimes I just don't get it.
Okay, so the partner says, I'm afraid that you'll be mad at me. I'm afraid you'll leave me. And so the listener is saying, wait, I don't understand. What do you mean? What a perfect question. Tell me more. Tell me more about that fear. Where does that fear come from? Is that something that happened to you before? Honey, could you tell me more about that? I want to understand. I don't understand. The listener can say, I don't really understand this, but could you help me? And then also the listener can say something like, wait, I didn't hear that. Could you say it again? But it doesn't, not understanding isn't a crime. It's actually a normal human experience. I don't understand. But you know what, honey, I care. Just the fact that you are afraid means, we have something to work on. I don't want you to be afraid. So glad you told me. Maybe eventually I will understand. Can we keep talking about it? So it's not the moment of, I don't get it, so let's just move on, isn't a healthy conversation. This is diving in a little deeper and finding the more that isn't being talked about. Guaranteed. Here's the interesting thing about this process is the speaker is uncovering more and more just by doing. In fact, I've had couples on this process where they start with a topic and they get halfway through and go, wait, oh, it's not about that. It's about this. And they really go into a deeper aspect of that topic and uncover something they didn't realize before. So it doesn't matter if you don't understand. What matters is, are you interested in learning?
That's a beautiful concept. I really love that. Our next question is, um, let's put me in the case of I'm trying to speak and we've had a trust boundary that has been affected in our past. My partner says something and it brings me back to a place of where I was lacking that trust from before. How would you recommend coming from a smaller section of this conversation that rebuilds trust when it's not really there right now?
Okay, so it sounds to me like the most helpful thing would be I really struggle with trust and it's keeping me stuck. So then that partner gets a chance to talk about when I don't trust you, this is what I do. I freeze in place, I shut down, I withdraw. I'm realizing that's what I do. So she's able, I don't know if this is a she or he, it doesn't matter because it happens to both. But just the topic of the struggle with trust and how sad that is. And to have the listener just understand the trust. It's not about the infraction. It's not about the betrayal, so to speak. It's about the impact that it has on the relationship, the ache, oh, I'm so afraid, the fear that that will happen again or something similar will happen again. But the process of just being able to say, I struggle with trust and I need you to understand. Can I talk about it? Does that make sense, Alexis?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that one is one that we see so often. It could be a huge betrayal, or it could be something very minor. But trust, remember, is a part of that foundation of the relationship. So I talked briefly about side two. And side two is really where this would fit, this discussion about the hurt, the trust, the breach of trust that keeps us stuck. That's a very different process, but helps to uncover all the aspects of that heartache. Whereas side one is really more for lighter conversation, more basic topics. So to answer this person's question, I would have them look into learning side two of our program. It would be really beneficial.
That's beautiful. I love that. It kind of reminds me, we had Jill and Mark Savage on the podcast. They will be coming on soon.
Great.
The episode hasn't been released yet, but they talked about something very similar of this like consistency and this like rebuilding. They had an infidelity that they talk about in the podcast, which I'm not sure this trust issue, if that's an infidelity, but that is a large breach of trust. And they just talked about being able to kind of come back to it. And they share an example in the podcast of they would drive close to a hotel and that he would go with his other partner.
And it's a trigger. Yes.
Yeah. And so she'd get mad every once in a while and she'd say, I'm mad about the financials of it today. And the next day I'm actually mad about like the irresponsibility. Like what if someone had found out? It's so close to our house. Right. And they just kind of needed that consistency and that listening and that willingness.
And think about this, Alexis. Think about the listener. Maybe that's the offending partner, the one that hurt their partner. It takes so much stamina to be able to stand there and say, I'm willing to talk about this. Why? Because you matter. And with that track record of being able to communicate about it as often as needed, what we see is within several months to a year, it starts to soften. So did you notice I said a year? But if you can keep your sights set on the ultimate goal of rebuilding trust, it is possible. We see it happen. And it is that just willingness whenever it bubbles up, okay, let's go back. And it's the impact. It's not the shame of the partner that made the mistake. It's about the impact on the relationship. That's what they're talking about. And that offending partner can be the hero by saying, I'm here. I'm here now. Yeah, it's hard. This is hard stuff.
Yeah, I love that concept of just, I'm here now. That's really beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Debi. We're going to take some time now to close out of the webinar. And thank you, everyone else, for coming and participating. It's you who make these webinars possible. And we're very, very grateful for your willingness to be here, take some time out in the middle of your night, as well as being able to participate with us, ask questions. Once again, if you did attend this webinar for the CEU credit certification, please make sure to stay on until the very end of the presentation. The survey needed for your certification should automatically load onto the screen. If for some reason it doesn't, please just email into marriagecommission@usu.edu. We'll send you the survey link and then your corresponding certification once that survey is completed. Well, thank you everyone and have a great rest of your night. Thanks, Debbie.